Section: Introduction. In this section, we explore the capabilities of both biological and artificial neural networks, NNs. We recognize that biological NNs, like human cognition, demonstrate remarkable abilities, while artificial NNs have achieved significant success, becoming the gold standard in many machine learning fields. However, the inner workings of these networks remain unclear, partly because their representations are distributed across many neurons, each of which can serve multiple functions. In contrast, symbolic algorithms, SAS, manipulate distinct entities based on clear rules, offering consistency and transparency. A typical example of an SI is a computer program, where variables can represent various values and are processed by defined functions. There are theories suggesting that higher-level cognition requires symbolic processing, but human-designed symbolic systems often lack the expressiveness and performance of NNs, especially in natural language processing, where neural architectures trained on large datasets have outperformed traditional symbolic methods. Despite the differences, we propose that NNs might implement simplified SAS or approximate them closely enough to help us understand complex neural behaviors. This is somewhat straightforward for artificial NNs since they are built using computer programs, but their complexity can make simplified SAS useful for comprehension. Our goal aligns with the broader aims of cognitive science, neuroscience, and mechanistic interpretability. We focus specifically on numeric cognition, investigating how neural systems represent numeric concepts similarly to symbolic algorithms. Numeric reasoning is well studied across various human ages and experiences, making it a valuable area for comparing biological and artificial NNs. We examine a numeric equivalence task where participants must produce the same number of response tokens as the demonstration tokens they initially observe. This task is intriguing for computational analysis because the training labels differ in type and length, and the numeric structures are not explicitly labeled. We ask several questions. What representations do artificial NNs use for this task? Do they rely on a single number system or different solutions for various situations? How do these answers evolve during training, and do they vary based on task specifics and network architecture? We aim to understand how a neural system might represent a flexible, abstract numeric variable, akin to a variable in a computer program. To address these questions, we train recurrent and attention-based artificial NNs on number-related next token prediction tasks. We then conduct causal and correlational analyses to investigate their neural representations and solutions. Our findings include causal alignments between neural variables and symbolic variables from a counting program. We demonstrate that transformer architectures solve tasks by referencing context at each step, while recurrent models maintain a cumulative state. We emphasize the importance of causal interventions to validate claims about neural solutions and the need to identify aligned neural subspaces rather than relying on raw activations. We also find that the alignment of recurrent models to the counting program can be significantly affected by seemingly unrelated task details. Our analysis reveals that the symbol-like neural variables are graded, showing less interchangeability for larger numbers and those with greater differences in magnitude. We track the neural variables throughout training, noting a correlation between task accuracy and alignment strength. Finally, we observe that smaller models exhibit greater variability in alignment, while larger models yield more precise neural variables. Section Summary. In this section, we explore the relationship between biological and artificial neural networks, NNs, and symbolic algorithms, SAS, in the context of numeric cognition, focusing on how NNs can represent numeric concepts similarly to SAS. We investigate the representations used by recurrent and attention-based NNs in a numeric equivalence task, revealing causal alignments between neural variables and symbolic processes, and highlighting the influence of task details and model size on these representations. Section: Related work. In this section, we emphasize the significance of using causal manipulations to interpret neural functions in our work. Causal inference involves methods that help us understand the specific effects of individual components within a larger system. Various causal interpretability approaches have been applied to identify the functions performed by the activations or circuits of models. We heavily rely on distributed alignment search, DAS, for our analyses, which can be seen as a type of activation patching or causal tracing. Numerous studies have investigated the ability of artificial neural networks, ANNs, to perform counting tasks. However, our approach differs as we do not explicitly teach distinct symbols for different numeric values. Instead, numbers are latent within the structure of our tasks. Previous research has theoretically examined recurrent neural networks, RNNs, in tasks like parentheses closing and explored long short-term memory, LSTM, networks and gated recurrent units, GRUs, in similar numeric equivalence tasks. These studies revealed connections to magnitude scaling solutions in both theoretical and practically trained ANNs. We build on their findings by applying causal methods and expanding the models we consider. We also reference work on transformer counting solutions that resemble our tasks. Our contribution includes exploring positional encodings, which allows us to avoid using explicit numeric labels while employing causal analyses. In our study, we train models on numeric equivalence tasks and utilize interpretability methods like DAS to understand how the models solve these tasks. Each task consists of sequences of varying lengths, starting with a beginning of sequence, BOS, token, and ending with an end of sequence, EOS, token. The sequences are defined by a randomly selected object quantity ranging from 1 to 20 and are constructed in two phases, the demonstration phase and the response phase. The demonstration phase begins with the BOS token, followed by a series of demo tokens equal to the object quantity, and ends with a trigger token, T. The response phase consists of response tokens equal in number to the object quantity, followed by the EOS token. During initial model training, we include all tokens in the autoregressive loss. However, during evaluation and DAS training, we focus only on the response phase tokens, which are determined by the demo phase. We hold out specific object quantities during training and consider a trial correct when the model accurately predicts all response tokens and the EOS token after the trigger. We define 3 task variants based on the types of demo and response tokens used. The multi-object task includes 3 demo token types with a single response token type. The single object task has 1 demo and 1 response token type. The same object task uses a single token type for both phases. Additionally, we introduce variable length, VL, variants to disrupt count position correlations, where demo tokens may include a void token type that should be ignored when determining the object quantity. Our recurrent models consist of gated recurrent units, GRUs, and long short-term memory networks, LSTMs, both of which utilize a hidden state vector for predictive computations. We compare these recurrent architectures to transformer architectures, which use a history of input tokens to make predictions. We present results from 2-layer, single attention head transformers that employ rope positional encodings, with additional details available in the supplementary materials. We ensure that all models achieve over 99.99% accuracy on their respective tasks before conducting analyses, evaluating them on sampled sequences of trained and held-out object quantities. We train 6 model seeds for each condition, discarding any that do not meet our accuracy standards. Section Summary. In this section, we emphasize the significance of causal manipulations in interpreting neural functions, utilizing methods like distributed alignment search, DAS, to analyze how our models perform numeric equivalence tasks without explicit numeric symbols. We describe our task design, which involves sequences of tokens representing object quantities, and outline the model architectures used, including gated recurrent units, GRUs, and transformers, to achieve high accuracy before conducting our analyses. Section: Symbolic Algorithms, SAS. In this section, we explore the alignment of 3 different symbolic algorithms, SAS, with the distributed representations of models. First, we discuss the up-down program, which uses a single numeric variable called the count to monitor the difference between demo tokens and response tokens at each step. It also has a phase variable to indicate whether it is in the demo or response phase, and it concludes when the count reaches 0 during the response phase. Next, we look at the up program, which employs two numeric variables, the demo count and the resp count. This program tracks quantities at each step, incrementing the demo count during the demo phase and the resp count during the response phase. It finishes when both counts are equal during the response phase. We then examine the context-distributed (CTX) distribution program, which checks a history of inputs at each step to decide when to stop, rather than using a cumulative quantity. A specific version of this program assigns a value of 1 to each demo token and -1 to each response token, calculating their sum at each step to determine the count. It outputs an end-of-sequence token when the sum is 0. We provide pseudocode for the up-down, up-up, and CTX distribution programs in the supplementary materials. We also include a figure illustrating the up-down strategy and the specific version of the CTX distribution strategy observed in some transformers. Importantly, there are countless causally equivalent implementations of these programs, and we do not differentiate between them in our work. Moving on to the distributed alignment search, DAS, we describe it as a framework for testing hypotheses about alignments between distributed systems and SAS through causal interventions. We freeze the model weights before analysis. DAS measures how well the best subspace of a distributed model's representations aligns with the variables from a specified SA. It uses causal interventions to train the alignment and assess its degree. For each variable from the SA, DAS learns a rotation matrix that aligns a subspace of the distributed representations with specific dimensions, allowing for interchangeability. This method relies on counterfactual behavior to train the rotation matrix, using the expected behavior of the program after a causal intervention as a training signal. We sample time points from two separate sequences, designating one as the target and the other as the source. We run the model on both sequences until these time points, extracting latent representations from a specified layer. We then rotate these representations and replace certain dimensions in the target vector with those from the source vector. Finally, we apply the inverse rotation to create a new vector for further predictions. We specify that half of the dimensions will be replaced, and the exact indices of these dimensions are not crucial. We discard the source vector and allow the model to continue making predictions using the modified target vector. The counterfactual behavior of the SAW serves as the training sequence for the rotation matrix. Once trained, we evaluate the alignment quality based on the model's prediction accuracy on the counterfactual outputs during held-out causal interventions. For the LSTM architecture, we perform DAS on the concatenated recurrent state vectors, while for GRUS, we focus on the recurrent hidden state. In transformers, we operate on the hidden state after the first layer. We typically use 10,000 samples for training and 1,000 for validation and testing, uniformly sampling object quantities and intervention time points. We orthogonalize the rotation matrix using PyTorch's default settings and train it for 1,000 iterations with a batch size of 512, selecting the best validation performance for analysis, using a learning rate of 0.003 and an atom optimizer. Section Summary. In this section, we explore three symbolic algorithms, up-down, up-up, and context-distributed, that utilize different numeric variables and phases to track sequences and determine stopping conditions. We also introduce the Distributed Alignment Search (DAS) framework, which employs causal interventions to align distributed representations with symbolic algorithms by training rotation matrices to optimize the alignment based on counterfactual behaviors. Section: Additional Interventions. In this section, we explore additional interventions to test our hypothesis about the model's behavior. We conduct an experiment to see if changing hidden representations affects the model's predictions. Specifically, we replace the hidden state at one time step with the hidden state from another time step using different inputs. We explain in more detail in the supplement why this method supports our claim of a time-distributed solution. We apply these changes to the recurrent hidden states in RNNs and to the first layer of transformer architectures, showing the results as CTX distribution in our figures. If the model is indeed using the CTX distribution approach, we expect its predictions to remain unchanged after our intervention. We also analyze the last value variable in the CTX distribution program, which reflects the increment from the previous input token. These adjustments are made to the embeddings in GRUS and the embeddings projected into the key and value vectors in transformers, while leaving the pre-query embeddings unchanged to further illustrate the anti-Markovian nature of the hidden states. To focus on the computations within a single attention layer of the transformers, we implement attention interventions that swap outputs from the self-attention module between different time steps. We conduct two types of interventions and average their results. In the first intervention, we replace the attention output at a non-terminal step with the output from a terminal step, expecting the end of sequence token as the result. In the second intervention, we do the opposite, replacing the output at an end of sequence step with that from a non-terminal step, expecting a response token. We also investigate direct substitutions of individual neuron activations in models trained on multiple objects. Here, we replace the activation of a specific neuron at one time step with its value from another sequence. Additionally, we perform a single model activation intervention on neurons 12 and 18 in the LSTM model, substituting both values. In our results, we analyze the performance of symbolic algorithms and find that the up-down program aligns best with the multi-object recurrent models, while the up-up and CTX distribution programs show lower alignment. This supports our interpretation that these models use a counting strategy to track quantities. Next, we examine how rope transformers perform the task by looking at attention weights across their two layers. We find that the response and end-of-sequence queries pay little attention to the response tokens. Substituting non-terminal hidden states during the response phase shows that the model's predictions remain largely unchanged, as indicated by the CTX distribution results. We also analyze the last value variable in the CTX distribution program for GRUS and rope transformers, yielding an interventional independence analysis value of 0.827. For transformers trained on a variable length version of the multi-object task, we achieve a higher value of 0.960, suggesting that these transformers rely less on positional information. To clarify where distributed counting occurs, we include direct attention interventions, which reveal how the end-of-sequence decision can be linked to a specific attention head. The lower interventional independence values for variable length transformers suggest they distribute their end-of-sequence decisions more across layers. Finally, we provide a theoretical analysis with simulations of one-layer transformers without positional encoding, demonstrating that we can manipulate the predicted count using the strength of demo and response tokens. Our direct substitutions of individual activation values yield a maximum interventional independence value of 0.399 in the LSTM model, highlighting the challenges of analyzing neural activations directly and the importance of understanding the rotation in our analysis. Section Summary. In this section, we demonstrate that our interventions, such as substituting hidden states and attention outputs in RNNs and transformers, do not affect the model's predictions, indicating a lack of reliance on cumulative count variables. Our analyses reveal that the multi-object models develop a counting strategy, while the variable-length transformers show a stronger tendency to distribute their decision-making across layers, as evidenced by their higher IIA scores. Section: Tasks. In this section, we explore how the type of demonstration token affects the alignment of recurrent models with the up-down program. We observe that models trained on the same object task, where the demo tokens match the response tokens, show poor alignment with the proposed symbolic alignments. This emphasizes the importance of the unified numeric representations in the multi-object and single-object tasks. We present theoretical neural solutions for the counting task, illustrating how some solutions, like the overlap solution, may not align well with the up-down solution. In the overlap solution, the count becomes mixed with the trial phase due to overlapping trajectories, making it hard to differentiate between counts during the demo and response phases. We do not assert that this is how same object models solve the task. Rather, we offer these models as potential explanations. Next, we discuss model size, learning trajectories, and symbolic gradients. We find that while various model sizes can tackle the multi-object task, increasing the dimensions in the hidden states of the GRUS enhances their alignment with the up-down program. Larger models tend to exhibit less graded alignments. We analyze symbolic alignments throughout training and note a strong correlation between alignment and performance, particularly in larger models. After the models complete the task, the alignment trajectories remain relatively flat. We further investigate the symbolic alignments in neural systems, highlighting the graded nature of neural symbols. Our findings indicate that GRU models trained on the multi-object task perform worse in alignment when dealing with larger quantities or greater absolute differences. The training data compels models to gain more experience with smaller numbers, as they frequently interact with them when larger numbers are involved. This may contribute to the more graded representations observed with larger numbers. Similarly, the DAS training data presents a challenge, as we uniformly sample object quantities and intervention indices, leading to a higher frequency of training interventions with smaller values.